Right now, in the city of Ottawa, most of the housing market has tilted back towards buyer's market territory. We're seeing more listings, more choice for buyers, and for the first time in years, sellers don't get to dictate the terms of every negotiation. But there's a pocket in the west end of the city right now where 96 out of every 100 homes that came to market so far this year actually sold, while across Ottawa as a whole, that number is closer to 50%. It's the same city, the same 6 months that we're looking at, but two completely different markets. And here's the part that matters if you're somebody who's looking to buy your first home or upsize into your first house. The hottest pocket on the entire list isn't $1 million enclave. The median price is actually under $450,000. So today I'm going to walk you through the 5 Ottawa neighborhoods that are still running hot while the rest of the market is cooling. These are places where you'll still run into competition, where homes are still moving fast and selling for very close to the asking price. And I'll also talk to you about what these 5 places all have in common so you can apply what you're learning here to the rest of the market rather than just picking these 5 specific neighborhoods, because there are other ones that are overperforming as well. And I want to clarify what I mean by overperforming, because it's not just price that we're looking at here, although that's definitely a factor. When I say neighborhoods are overperforming, I'm talking about robust demand, how fast homes sell and how close to asking they sell for. I'm not saying these are the places where the prices went up the most in the last year or two. What I am saying is that the demand is proving to be resilient and the market there is staying hot despite a cooling market throughout the rest of the city. Now, there are 2 numbers that I'm watching here to kind of cut through the noise and determine whether or not a neighborhood made this list. The first is the sales to new listings ratio, which basically of all the homes that were up for sale in that area, how many actually ended up selling. Above 60%, and it's considered a seller's market. If it's under 40%, it's considered a buyer's market. Now, right now, the city as a whole sits at about 46% sales to new listings ratio, which is balanced and leaning towards a buyer's market. And directionally, this has been heading in a buyer's direction for the last little while. The second one that I look at most closely is days on market. So how long did it take on average for a property in that neighborhood to sell and come off the market? Citywide right now, we're sitting at about 37 days on market. Now, those are 2 numbers that I want you to kind of hold in your head as we're going through this video, because this is the baseline we're going to be comparing all of these neighborhoods to. Neighborhood number 1, and this is the standout on the list, is Arba Park out in Bell's Corners. And this is one you really want to pay attention to if you are a first-time buyer or you're very affordability conscious, because this kind of bucks the trend of what you'd expect. It's the most affordable pocket on the list by far, with a median price of only $434,000. And it's also the hottest section by a mile. This year, 96% of the homes that came up in this pocket ended up selling. And again, that's compared to a citywide average of 46%. They also sold at about 99 cents on the dollar if we're looking at a list to sales price ratio. So not quite getting to the territory where it's over the asking price, but very, very close to the asking price for the average home in this pocket. If you're a buyer and you find one that you like in this neighborhood, you have to make sure that you move quickly and you come in with a clean, serious offer, because this one won't be hanging around on the market for too long. Now, just to give you an idea of where Arba Park and Bell's Corners is oriented, if you're not as familiar with the Ottawa area, to the west here, we've got Kanata, Stittsville. Just to the east, we have Nepean, and a little further east, we have downtown Ottawa, all connected by the 417 that runs kind of to the north of Bell's Corners here. Now, Arba Park specifically is in the southern section of Bell's Corners, and it is fairly old housing stock, hence the more affordable price tag. But you can see you've got easy access to the 416 and 417 right there. You go a few minutes to the west, you're in Kanata with all of the amenities that are on offer there, including movie theaters, shopping centers, box stores, all that kind of stuff. And east, you're going about 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on what traffic is doing, to get to kind of the downtown section of the city. So very convenient, but very car-centric if you're operating out of Bell's Corners. But overall, if you're a first-time buyer or somebody looking to move up into your first house, this is a great neighborhood and a great area to start. For neighborhood number 2, we need to head a little bit west into Kanata, to the Glen and Hazeldean area. Now, this is one for couples or families who want a little bit more house and a bit more of a yard, and they're willing to trade the slightly shorter commute to downtown that you would get in Bell's Corners. The price point's a little bit higher here with a median sales price of $623,000, a sales to list price ratio of 62%, which is comfortably in a seller's market territory compared to the 46% average for the city, and the homes are selling in about 29 days. This is also probably the most reliable data point on the list because it has the largest sample size. The most properties changed hands in this neighborhood than of all of the 5 that we're going to look at today. So while it's not the same as it was in 2021, 2022, this pocket is definitely still competitive. Now, if you head just a little bit west down Robertson Road from Bell's Corners and Arba Park, that's going to take you out to Glen in Kanata. Now, Glen again, a little bit older housing stock, but a higher price point because you're getting a fair amount more space than you are in most of the places in that Arba Park neighborhood. One thing to note about Glen is between 1996 and 2009, there were a few floods that happened. So there was a chronic flooding issue up until that kind of like early 2000s period. The issue has since been fixed, and there hasn't been nearly as many issues with drainage and flooding since then. But it was something that kind of dogged the neighborhood for a while. There was a big flood culminating in 2009, where tons and tons of basements flooded, not unlike what happened to certain neighborhoods in Nepean just recently here on Canada Day. So that is something to note about that neighborhood, but it's not something that has happened recently. So Glen is a great option for you. And again, you're right smack in the middle of Kanata as far as location goes. You're right in between Terry Fox Drive and Eagleson Road, which are the two kind of north-south arteries. You've got Richmond a little bit to the south, everything you could need in Kanata, and you've got easy access just a little bit north up to the 417, where it'll take you, again, probably like 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes longer, depending on traffic, to get into the city than it would from Arba Park and Bell's Corners. For number 3 on the list, we have to cross the city, go east, and look at the south end of Blackburn Hamlet. This pocket is tucked up against the Greenbelt, and it's another affordable one that made the list with a median price of $428,000, basically neck and neck with what we were looking at in Arba Park in Bell's Corners. The list to sales price ratio here was also excellent, right around 99%, so selling almost exactly at the asking price, just slightly below, with the average days on market clocking in at 26 days. Now, in contrast from the first two, Blackburn Hamlet is actually located in the east end of Ottawa, just in between kind of the east side of the main part of town here. Again, this is downtown, but not so far east that you hit Orleans. It's kind of just in the middle here. And the south end of Blackburn Hamlet is the neighborhood that we're talking about, but all of it, honestly, is a pretty good bet for your first place. Again, very affordable here, very convenient. You're quite close to the highway, and much like Bell's Corners, it's very easy to get into Kanata. From Blackburn Hamlet, it's also very easy to get into Orleans. This south end specifically, you've got a lot of places that are a few freeholds, but also some condo townhouses that are quite well maintained, and older housing stock. And then you get higher price points as you head north. There's more detached properties and freeholds and that sort of thing. But overall, not a bad location at all if you're looking for your first home or to upsize into something a little bit bigger. Number 4 is a little bit further east, heading out to Orleans. Specifically, we're looking at Brook and Pine Ridge. The median home price is around $628,000 year to date, so very similar to that West End neighborhood of Glen with a sales to new listings ratio of 71%. Homes taking a little bit longer to sell at 34 days. So still below the average, but it is taking slightly longer to sell. But the price that you're getting and the likelihood that you're going to sell is still very high. You just have to be a little more patient. Now, if you keep going east from Blackburn Hamlet here, you will find Pine Ridge. That's this one here in Orleans. Just a few minutes down the road, a kind of similar distance from Kanata to get downtown, just going the other direction, going west. And most of the homes here, they're newer than Glen for sure, and that's reflected in the higher price point. But they're also fairly old housing stock relative to a lot of the newer parts of Orleans. So you're looking at places mostly built in the 1980s, 1990s, rather than Glen where you're looking at more like 60s, 70s. So you're not going to run into anything like aluminum wiring and that sort of thing as much as you would in those older areas. Right in between 10th Line and Trim Road, so it's easy to get to the 174 to access the highway and get to everything in Orleans that you would need to access. So another great place to start your home buying journey if Orleans is the place that you want to be. To finish off the list, we're going to stay in Orleans and talk about Chapel Hill. This is the priciest pocket on the list, clocking in with a median price of $690,000 year to date. And it's still running at that price point as a clear seller's market, with 66% of the listings that came onto the market actually ending up sold against the city average of 46%, with homes moving around 28 days on average versus the 37-day average. Now, this matters because it tells you that the hot sections of the market aren't just relegated to the cheaper sections. Even a little bit further up the price ladder, closer to that $700,000 average price point, if you're in the right kind of established community, demand can still outpace supply and lead to competitive environments. The districts of Chapel Hill that we're looking at are just on the west side of Orleans, so to the west of the Falling Brook Pine Ridge area and just to the east of Blackburn Hamlet. We've got District 2008 and 2009 here. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger and zoom in. So the majority of the housing stock in these areas is, again, that kind of 80s, 90s era, so newer than Glen, but very similar to Falling Brook. Except for the north end here. Up in here, you're going to see places that are like early 2000s. And then if you go on the other side of Innis and south, kind of over in this direction, that's where you're going to get a lot of the newer stuff. You'll be in kind of like the Trails Edge area, Summerside, that kind of thing. All of those places are quite a bit newer. But again, as far as location goes, you're in a great spot. You just got to go a little bit north to hit the 174 and access the highway. Another great location in Orleans. So if we take a step back and look at what all of these places have in common, this is the key takeaway that I want you to have from the video. They cluster in three corners of the city: Bell's Corners, West Nepean, Kanata, and Orleans. And notice what's not on the list. The prestigious addresses like Rockcliffe, the core of the Glebe, the priciest streets in the city are not the hottest commodities right now. And that's not an accident. The heat isn't where the most expensive neighborhoods are, it's where the most value and most affordability can be found. The places where two decent incomes can actually afford the kind of house that you can build a life and a family in. And that's what keeps these pockets hot, even when the rest of the city is declining. And once you see the pattern, it's something you can apply to other neighborhoods throughout the city. If you see places where the prices are affordable and it has all of the things that most people want, you're going to get competition at any part of the sales cycle. Now, if you're a buyer, this could seem like bad news because of the competition, but it's also good news in that there will probably be pretty dependable resale if you purchase in one of these places, because those sorts of things that are drawing you in are going to keep drawing in the next generation of people when you're ready to move on in 5, 10, 15 years. And if you're a seller who's got one of these places that you're considering letting go of, you are probably in a better position than you think.